Ford's Fiesta has always been affordable and great to drive, but state of the art? It's that too, in this improved take on the 7th generation model. Beneath the smarter styling lies some clever user-friendly technology and cabin features that'll make downsizing into one of these less of a chore. This is how you write a bestseller.
What's been the world's most significant car in the last half a century? Well, this is our nomination, Ford's Fiesta, rejuvenated in Mark 7 model guise in 2017, then updated 3 years later with mild hybrid engines, before being facelifted in late 2021 for a fresh generation of buyers, all of which has created the car we're going to look at here. The figures speak for themselves. Since this supermini was first launched back in 1976, well over 17 million models have been sold, getting on for 5 million in the UK, which is why, to keep up with demand, a Fiesta currently rolls off the Cologne production line every 68 seconds. We are, though, no longer quite the nation of Fiesta folk that we used to be. For over 3 decades, this model line was the UK's best-selling one, but these days it's routinely outsold by its Vauxhall Corsa arch-rival. Partly that's down to Ford's more recent reticence when it comes to slashing showroom pricing. And partly it's down to the brand's reluctance to embrace the full electrification we're seeing in some segment rivals. This 7th generation model simply hasn't been engineered to work as a full EV or even as a full hybrid. But since 2020, more expensive 1-litre EcoBoost versions like this one have had the less sophisticated mild hybrid system we mentioned earlier, which works particularly well with the optional 7-speed power shift dual-clutch auto gearbox we're going to try here. If that's enough engine tech for you, then elsewhere with this supermini, Ford hopes you'll find lots else to like, particularly with this fully facelifted version of the 7th generation design. Smarter styling includes headlamps now with full LED tech, and pricier versions like this one get the digital instruments and enhanced camera safety features that we've already seen in this model's almost identically engineered SUV cousin, the Puma. As before, there's an active crossover version and a now enhanced ST hot hatch variant. And as ever, this Fiesta delivers class-leading drive dynamics. But will all that be enough to give this rejuvenated model a chance of reclaiming that coveted #1 sales spot in our market? Well, you'll need the industry's most comprehensive review, the car and driving road test, to find out. Nothing's really been changed in terms of drive dynamics or engineering with this facelifted Mark 7 Fiesta, but that's because Ford has already introduced updates in those areas as recently as 2020. Now, assuming you haven't driven a Fiesta since then, you're going to want some answers to the really big questions here. What's the electrified engineering that's been added into this 7th generation model really like? And has it in any way diluted this car's greatest calling card, its energetic drive dynamics? Well, it certainly shouldn't have. Ford's choice of mild hybrid tech, rather than the more efficient full hybrid technology that rivals like Renault, Honda and Toyota offer in this segment, means that the weight penalty for this technology is as relatively slight as the frugality benefit it delivers, which will be good news if you're the kind of person who likes their driving. Variations on the Fiesta theme may come and go, but before driving any version of Ford's definitive supermini, there's one thing you almost always tend to know for certain, that it'll be a great steer. From the launch of this 7th generation model back in 2017, the Blue Oval brand sought to retain that traditional Fiesta attribute, yet at the same time introduce a standard of ride quality closer to that delivered by arch rivals like Volkswagen's Polo. Dynamically, the best of both worlds, in other words. To us, that sounded ambitious back then, and it still does now. The magazine and website reviews you'll see on this car suggest that all derivatives deliver great dynamic responses, but the truth is that the feel you'll get from this Fiesta depends quite a lot on the variant of it you choose. That's because two quite different chassis configurations have been used across the range. Most journalists seem to have tried the firmer package used for the various sporty models, like the ST line variant we're trying here, but other versions come with a rather softer setup, probably better suited to the majority of customers. In that guise, the car remains a great steer, but it isn't quite the sharp, eager thing we remember earlier generation Fiesta models being. The difference isn't huge though, and the trade-off for any slight dynamic dilution is worthwhile because, true to Ford's objective, you will find the ride quality of this Mark 7 model to be hugely improved if you're coming to it direct from its pre-2017 Mark 6 predecessor. Which is to be expected given that the whole suspension setup was completely revamped for this 7th generation design, with bigger axle mounts that better iron out road imperfections. If you're a Fiesta fan, you'll really notice the improvements that the current version of this car can offer over earlier generation models in this regard, especially over broken urban tarmac surfaces. The whole car these days has a more mature, grown-up feel that we think the majority of owners will like, though the payoff for that lies in a slight extra degree of body roll through tighter bends. All of this is relative though. By the standards of the supermini segment, the Fiesta, even in its more comfort-orientated forms, can still offer a level of handling joie de vivre that's beyond anything its competitors can manage. That Ford has managed to retain this advantage while making such great strides forward with ride quality says much for the efforts of the engineering team behind this 7th generation model. Mind you, they had some good raw materials to work with. This 7th generation model's body is 15% stiffer than that of its pre-2017 era predecessor, yet remains one of the lightest in the class, which always helps. Stability has been aided by a widening of the front and rear tracks, and there's the best torque vectoring system in the segment, this being one of those setups that works when you're powering through tight turns to apply an imperceptibly small amount of braking to the inside front wheels, assisting tractional stability and firing you from bend to bend. As a result, you can throw the car into corners at speeds most rivals wouldn't be able to countenance. And do so with confidence inspiring feedback through the wheel. The electric steering rack, introduced into the Fiesta model line back in 2012, was upgraded for this Mark 7 model so that it's lighter when you need it to be nipping around town, but weightier and more feelsome when you're pushing on, which is one of the reasons why we think you'll feel so at one with this car in wet or slippery conditions. Of course, the sportier, firmly suspended, more enthusiast-orientated ST line and ST models are even better in this regard, delivering greater grip, a reduction in body roll, and most of the endearing eagerness we were lamenting the slight absence of earlier. Anyway, enough with that. You'll be wanting to know about the electrified engine technology we mentioned at the beginning of this section, which features on this model's core 3-cylinder 1-litre EcoBoost petrol power plant. We should point out that you don't have to have it. At the time of this test in summer 2022, lower order models could still be had with the older non-electrified 100 PS version of this 1-litre EcoBoost unit, or in base trim form with the brand's really ancient 1.1-litre TI VCT 75 PS normally aspirated engine. Another petrol powertrain, all diesels now having been long dropped from the Fiesta lineup. The other unelectrified engine on offer sits at the other end of the range, the larger capacity 1.5-litre EcoBoost power plant that features with the top Fiesta ST hot hatch. But it's the mild hybrid MHEV version of the 1-litre EcoBoost engine, which is what we're trying here, that the vast majority of Fiesta customers will want going forward. Hybrid engines aren't new in this class. Toyota has been offering one in its rival Yaris model for most of the last decade. But in their full fat form, hybrids add what for many buyers is an unacceptably large price premium to small cars of this kind. It's pretty difficult, after all, to buy a Yaris, even a quite modestly specified one, for much less than around £22,000. What if a more affordable approach into hybrid tech could be delivered that would be lighter, cheaper and more driver orientated? Well, Ford says that its MHEV mild hybrid tech does just that. True, it's nothing like as efficient as a full hybrid or a full electric model, and you'll find both these alternative technologies also well represented right across this segment, so make sure you know what you're buying. But in compensation, MHEV tech boosts driver feel because it's lighter and it adds a slice of extra pulling power just when you need it. At this point, we're compelled to revert to what the shampoo adverts call the science bit. So feel free to glaze over for a minute or two if all you really care about is how much this car costs or how well it drives. Simplicity's the keynote here, so the 1 litre 3-cylinder EcoBoost petrol power plant this car primarily features is essentially the same one Ford's been offering since 2011, more recently enhanced with cylinder deactivation tech, which cuts down on cylinder use at low to medium throttle speeds. For the Fiesta MHEV though, this unit gets a lower compression ratio and a larger turbo, and it's been embellished by a beefed up starter generator driven by a belt at the front of the engine that stores the energy harvested when you brake or decelerate in a tiny 48 volt lithium ion battery secreted at the back of the car, which provides a bit of extra zip when you accelerate. Ford says up to 50 newton meters of extra torque, and delivers a little electric boost from low revs to torque fill while you're waiting for the turbo to spool up. So that little momentary hesitation you sometimes get with small little turbo engines when pulling off from roundabouts and away from junctions is dealt with too. All good then, if it works. Broadly speaking, it does. A few potential Fiesta MHEV customers will have the ordinary version of this engine to benchmark against on their test drive, but those already familiar with it would perhaps notice that in this form, this unit pulls more easily from almost any speed, with fewer gear changes needed, which makes it feel like a much larger capacity power plant. Your only real clue to the hybrid system's operation is an added set of icons on the instrument cluster that show when the motor is recuperating energy under braking or providing it under acceleration. With the new digital instrument cluster we've got here, that's shown even more clearly if you select the provided hybrid gauge. Otherwise, the Fiesta drive experience is pretty familiar, with a pleasingly fizzy, thrummy soundtrack under full throttle, at which point 62 miles an hour from rest occupies 9.4 seconds on the way to 124. You certainly wouldn't think that the little EcoBoost lump beneath the bonnet ahead of you had just 3 cylinders and a literage capacity not much different from that of a good bottle of Burgundy. For the sake of completion, we'll give you the performance figures for the 3 other engines you can also theoretically have in this car, the rarely chosen ones we mentioned earlier. You might need a calendar rather than a stopwatch to measure the acceleration time of the rather inefficient base 1.1 litre TI VCT 75 PS unit. It actually takes 14.7 seconds on the way to 103 miles an hour. Plus, with this base engine, Ford won't give you the rear disc brakes you get with the EcoBoost models. You don't even get 6 speeds with the manual gearbox. For the non-electrified 1 litre EcoBoost 100 PS power plant, the figures are 10.8 seconds and 112 miles an hour. That only leaves the 200 PS 1.5 litre 3-cylinder EcoBoost engine of the Fiesta ST hot hatch, an engine that improves those stats to 6.5 seconds and 143 miles an hour, and would be very nice to have, but would probably take most potential Fiesta folk way over budget. Those performance figures, by the way, are exactly the same as those of the pre-facelifted ST model, despite the fact that the improved version gets a 30 Nm increase in torque. Pulling power raised from 290 to 320 Nm. Bottom line then is that the powertrain sweet spot in the range is probably the 125 PS MHEV 1 litre unit we're trying here. An engine which has the added advantage of being the only one in the range that can be ordered with the option of automatic transmission. In the past, we'd have counselled you to steer well clear of an automatic Fiesta, but with the arrival of Ford's PowerShift dual clutch 7-speed auto, we're trying it here, we've needed to update that advice. That's mainly because, unlike previous Ford Autos, this more sophisticated transmission has relatively little impact on performance or efficiency. Choosing it carries the added advantage of being able to further specify Ford's latest stop-and-go adaptive cruise control system, which can bring the car to a halt in heavy traffic, then seamlessly start it off again without any driver input. Whatever gearbox you choose for this 1-litre EcoBoost M HEV engine, you'll find that it has quite a buzzy thrum under hard acceleration, mainly because it lacks the balancer shaft that calms down many competing 3-cylinder units, the PureTech power plant you'll find in a rival Vauxhall Corsa or a Peugeot 208, for instance. Mind you, the sound of this Ford EcoBoost powertrain isn't unpleasant, and could even be said to enhance the character of the car, a soundtrack which is particularly evident if you choose the most energetic of the 3 selectable drive modes available to all Fiesta EcoBoost drivers, this being Sport. As with the other 2 drive settings, Normal and Eco, this alters throttle response, steering feel, and, on an auto model, gear shift timings to suit the way you want to drive. If you've chosen the crossover style Fiesta Active model, you'll get additional trail and slippery drive modes too. The top ST hot hatch replaces the Eco setting with a track mode, which disables traction control and loosens up the ESC stability system for circuit driving. Ultimately, whichever Fiesta EcoBoost model you choose, it's hard to go too far wrong. The characteristics of this engine perfectly suiting the way this car is as comfortable jinking through the city as it is when entertaining you through the back doubles. Which reminds you that this Ford is a bestseller for a reason. And with mild hybrid tech installed in this car, that reason is just that bit more compelling. Ford resisted the temptation to meddle too much with the look of this 7th generation Fiesta when the powertrain lineup was substantially revised back in 2020. With this midterm facelift, though, a smarter, more sophisticated feel has arrived for the styling of European design director Joel Piskowski's original shape. Quite a lot more also changes now with the different model variants, and there's an expanded range of exterior colours, wheel designs and interior finishes to tell you about. Let's start here at the front, where Fiesta regulars will immediately notice the way this reprofiled bonnet flows into these slimmer headlamps. They have integrated daytime running lights, are now of the full LED variety on all variants, and can be upgraded as here with Matrix technology featuring glare-free high beam functionality. You might also pick up the fact that the Ford badge has now fallen from the nose to sit in the middle of this now larger, bluffer and moreover grille, the style of which varies according to trim level. There are horizontal bars for base trend and titanium versions, vertical strakes for the active variant, and a hexagonal finish for this ST line version and the ST hot hatch. The style of these lower corner cutout varies with those trim levels too. The silver finished lower detailing here looks particularly smart. Move to the side and the changes made to this facelifted model are a lot more difficult to spot. Perhaps the most significant news is that there's no longer a 3-door body style, which is surprising because previously over 30% of customers chose it. As before, there's this central belt line running along the bottom of the windows into the headlamps, with 2 additional creases giving the flanks some shape. A higher one flowing through the door handles, with a lower one angling gently upwards from the front wheel arch. Ford's reverted to smaller 15-inch wheels with plastic covers for the cheapest models, but if you can avoid those, you'll have the choice of either 17-inch alloys or the 18-inch rims, which feature here. This ST line spec drops the standard ride height by 6mm, opting for active trim, on the other hand, raises it by 18mm. The rear view isn't much different from before either. Ford still limits tail lamp LED tech to plusher models like this one, this better emphasising the distinctive C-shaped signature light pattern. The idea of these horizontal clusters is to emphasise this Mark 7 model's wide stance and broad shoulders, hence also the way that this sculpted bumper has been scalloped to include these reflective lenses in its far corners. Active models are embellished with a lower skid plate and a black panel around the number plate. And across the range, there's this neat integrated roof-mounted tailgate spoiler with a bee-sting aerial just beyond. If you're a real stickler for detail, up here you might notice the narrow panel shot lines, particularly here between the roof and the tailgate. An example of what Ford says is an obsession with quality with this car. As usual though, what's more important is the stuff you can't see. Now, from the beginning of production of this Mark 7 model, the company based this car on a thoroughly reworked version of the Global B platform used in the previous pre-2017 6th generation Fiesta, but upgraded it with more laser welding, stiffer attachment points and a body structure featuring 35% more ultra-high strength boron steel, all of which delivered a 15% improvement in torsional stiffness. What it all boils down to is that here we've got a facelift that makes a real visual difference, and at the same time a lot of the really neat features we liked before have been retained. The My Key functionality, for instance, which allows you to program this ignition key to set a maximum speed limit, a seatbelt reminder, and even control the volume of the audio system, all of which will give you a bit more peace of mind if you happen to be loaning your Fiesta out to your children. Time to take a look inside. Whether you'll notice much change with this facelifted model at the wheel will depend on the variant you happen to have chosen to try. As you can see, the 12.3-inch digital instrument display from the Puma can now be had here, but with the Fiesta it's limited to titanium, active and ST line variants with Ford's pricey X pack, all to the top version of the ST hot hatch. Otherwise, nothing's much different, which is a little disappointing because perceived cabin quality was one of the areas the brand really needed to concentrate on here in order to keep up with more modern segment rivals. As it is, the more expensive looking materials you'll find on some rivals are notable by their absence, which could be a problem for Blue Oval brand dealerships. Given the higher prices the Mark now wants to charge, virtually all Fiestas now cost well over £20,000. On the plus side, quite a lot more equipment's been built into this car in recent years. A quick clear front windscreen and velour floor mats, for instance, along with this 8-inch Sync centre infotainment screen, embellished above entry-level trim with a clever Ford Pass Connect modem, which gives you in-car Wi-Fi. And if you can afford one of the nicer models, lots of finishing details feature to distract your attention from the coarse, sharply angled plastics that proliferate in the lower part of the dash. There's a blue theme with active and ST models. It's red with this ST line variant, the one many customers tend to choose, attracted perhaps by touches like red stitching, enhanced in this case by Sensico faux leather part trimming for the seats, and rather unconvincing carbon fibre style fascia inlays. The big news with this cabin update, though, is the availability of this new 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster to replace what you'd otherwise get, conventional twin analogue dials separated by a 4.2-inch central trip computer. This widescreen layout is a fair bit more sophisticated than that, springing into life with fancy graphics, though unlike some other rival model virtual cockpit screens, it can't be specified to show full-width navigation mapping. Select one of the various driving modes and it alerts your attention in a really eye-catching way with a digital speedo alongside the bespoke setting layout you've chosen. Otherwise, the display is based around a central area that can be configured in various customisable ways, flanked by two outer virtual dials, a speedo on the left and a rev counter on the right, which initially looked rather curious due to the absence of outer bezels. Between these gauges, you can prioritise readouts for audio, nav or phone info, or choose Select Screen, which allows you to choose display options from quite an extensive list, though we're not quite sure why Ford feels the need to restrict you to just 7 choices. A click on this steering wheel button can scroll you through readouts for things like fuel economy, trip computer info, tyre pressures, an eco behaviour option, and a hybrid gauge which shows you when deceleration or braking is regenerating energy. If all of this represents information overload, you can also select a calm screen, at which point nothing at all will be shown between the gauges. Anything this instrument cluster display can't tell you will be covered off by the further 8-inch Sync touchscreen monitor that you'll find sitting rather awkwardly proud of the fascia moulding. Thankfully, it features the proper rotary volume and zoom controls that some rival systems have unwisely dispensed with. But its graphics lack the crisp clarity of those you'd find in a Volkswagen Group product, and its refresh times are slower too. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring systems are built in, but when you use them, you lose these helpful shortcut audio, phone, navigation, apps and settings press selections at the base of the screen, which is a touch annoying. There's voice control too, though it's not particularly intuitive. On the plus side, there's the embedded Ford Pass Connect Wi-Fi connectivity we mentioned earlier, which allows for remote interaction with your Fiesta via your smartphone. And Ford includes a much better DAB audio system than you get on most rivals. 6 speakers as standard, with this car's premium 10-speaker B&O setup, an affordable option. Enough on screens, what else? Well, the driving position, as ever in a Fiesta, is excellent, with all the controls very user-friendly and ergonomically spot on, which is why it's easy to feel so comfortable in this car. There's a usefully wide range of seat and wheel adjustment. The driver's chair itself is supportive, though you have to stretch quite a way up the range to get it with lumbar adjustment, and you sit a little higher up than in some rivals, which is a boon when you're trying to negotiate tight city streets. Rear three-quarter vision isn't quite so good, the small rear side windows hampering your over-the-shoulder view, which might be a problem if you opt for the entry-level variant and don't pay the extra required for rear parking sensors. Interior storage space is decently taken care of by supermini standards. You get this big 1 litre area at the bottom of the centre stack with a USB-A port nearby that'll be ideal for your mobile phone. And this area can also house this wireless charging mat, a standard feature further up the range. Around the gear stick, you'll find a coin tray, a 12-volt socket and a couple of cup holders. The centre storage box sits further back, featuring a lift-out tray and an illuminated USB-A socket within. The narrow door pockets are rather small and lack bottle holders, but you get a big glove box with an integrated upper shelf, and there's a further cubby by the driver's right knee. Inevitably, there are a few issues, things we'd want Ford to look at for future model updates. There are no roofline grab handles of the type that help older folk to get in. The cruise control buttons on the steering wheel are a bit fiddly. Plus, the centre dash touchscreen attracts reflections and the ventilation vents beneath it freeze your fingers if you linger too long on the controls. We mentioned build quality earlier on. Well, the glove box lid and the door handles let the side down particularly here. To be fair though, everything feels very decently screwed together. Time to take a seat in the rear. Now, as part of the 2020 model year updates, Ford lengthened the body shell of this 7th generation model by 71mm, and there are some neat touches, like the way that this sleek silhouette has been designed to channel rainwater away from the edges, reducing the risk of passengers being dripped on when they get in or out. Enter in, though, through the rather restricted door aperture, and this still doesn't feel like one of the more spacious 5-door superminis you could have selected. And that certainly isn't the case inside, though this Ford is now at least class competitive with regard to rear cabin space, which is something you certainly couldn't have said of the previous generation pre-2017 era model. The headrests dig uncomfortably into your shoulder until they're raised, and there's no really clever stuff here like the cinema-style flip-up seat bases you'd find in a rival Honda Jazz, or the reclining seat backrests you get in a rival Mini hatch 5-door. But then we didn't really expect that. The issue is whether Ford has properly covered off the basics here. Is that the case? Well, really tall folk will certainly need cooperation from those ahead to get truly comfortable in terms of leg space. And most buyers, of course, will merely be carrying small children back here, though even a youngster will only want to travel short distances in the middle of this rear bench as the cushion is quite narrow. Still, both outer seats feature load limiters and pre-tensioners, both features omitted on older generation Fiestas. In addition, you get a rear centre headrest, which doesn't always feature on a supermini. And to let in a bit of extra light, these odd, high-set quarter-light windows set in the C-pillars. Plus, there are the expected ISOFIX child seat fastenings and coat hooks, but no grab handles or connectivity ports. Small door bins and mat pockets are provided for storage, and there's a small centre cubby. Even if you're not especially tall, it's easy to bash your head as you exit. But having negotiated that, and before we head back to the boot, we'll pause on the way to mention these automatic door edge protectors, which can be built into the front and rear doors, and which, especially here at the rear, will be invaluable in preventing your kids from denting neighbouring parked vehicles as they spring from the car. Also worth a mention is the Ford Easy Fuel capless refuelling system, designed to stop you from putting diesel into a petrol model or vice versa. Now, what's it like back here? Well, there's still quite a high sill to heave bigger shopping bags over. And for our market, you can't have an adjustable height boot floor either. Beneath the boot floor, you get a compartmentalised area, but only if you're unwise enough not to pay the extra Ford wants for a spare wheel. An option unavailable to those opting for the entry-level 1.1 litre TI VCT engine. An optional spare is offered with all other Fiestas and will now be available to you even if the variant you're looking at has been fitted with the B&O sound system upgrade, which wasn't possible with pre-2020 versions of this 7th generation design. That enhanced audio setup previously housed its subwoofer beneath the boot floor, but this has now been relocated to the wheel arch where it ought to have been put in the first place. Back in 2017, when we first tested this Mark 7 model, we hoped that the lengthier platform would bring this Ford closer to the prevailing supermini standard for luggage capacity, but was somewhat disappointed to find an improvement of only 17 litres. That's still an issue for us. The luggage bay is rated at 292 litres, a figure that most rivals can comfortably improve upon. Still, it'll be enough for a folded pushchair and the contents of the weekly shop, which is all most owners will need. There are no tie-down points, but there is a dim light on the right, and bag hooks feature on the side walls. If you're able to flatten the 60-40 split folding rear backrest, you'll find that the revealed cargo floor ends up with quite a step in it. But the total capacity figure looks rather better by segment standards, 1,093 litres. As we've been finding in this test, Ford has improved this Mark 7 Fiesta quite a lot since its original launch, but the brand also expects customers to pay for that. At our original test back in 2017, prices started from around £13,000, and even the plushest variant wouldn't set you back much more than about £20,000. At the time of the test of this facelifted model in summer 2022, things were quite a bit different. Partly because the three-door body style that around 30% of customers used to choose is no longer available, and partly because Ford doesn't now offer a really poverty spec level for this car. Prices at the time of this test were kicking off at nearly £19,000. Set your sights on a plush variant like this ST Line X test car, and you're looking at a list figure of well over £26,000. Yes, you heard that right. All the engines available are these days of 3 cylinders in size, and all of them are now the petrol variety. TDCI diesel-fueled Fiestas having long been consigned to history. There are no longer base style or Z-Tech trim levels, so the range now kicks off with base trend specification, which offers what previously would have been a mid-level standard of equipment. That's the trim level you have to have if you want the base engine in the range. Ford's 3-cylinder 1.1-litre TI VCT unit, an older tech, normally aspirated unit that's primarily there to keep the base asking price down and isn't helped by its continuing use of a manual gearbox with only 5 speeds. At the time of this test, with most core trim levels, Ford was for a limited period still offering Fiesta customers the opportunity to save around £1,100 over the cost of the base mild hybrid powertrain and choose its 1-litre turbo EcoBoost engine in its older 100 PS non-electrified form. If you can give those two power plants a swerve and start your perusal of the range with that 1-litre 3-cylinder mild hybrid turbo unit, we're trying it here in its volume 125 PS form, then prices at the time of filming started at just over £21,500. This mild hybrid engine now comes only with one level of output, but does offer a choice of 2 gearboxes. The alternative 7-speed PowerShift automatic we've been trying here costs £1,500 more. That engine is available, of course, with all 3 of the lineup's core trim levels. Titanium, which is supposed to feel plush, Active, which delivers a raised ride height and a mild crossover vibe, and, as in this case, ST line, which looks more sporty. In each case, there's the option of finding around £1,500 more for a better equipped X designated level of spec. We've actually got an ST Line X model here. Got that? Good. We'll be asking questions later. Of course, the Fiesta range wouldn't be complete without a proper hot hatch version, and Ford still offers that in the form of one of our favourite fast superminis, the Fiesta ST. This model gets its own engine, a 3-cylinder unit once again, but this one a non-electrified 1.5-litre EcoBoost power plant, putting out a meaty 200 PS and now with an extra 30 newton-meters of torque for better mid-range punch. The ST comes only in manual gearbox form and only now with 5 doors and plush ST3 trim, for which Ford wants nearly £27,000 for a Fiesta. Yes, really. On to the value proposition offered by mainstream Fiesta models. Now, our take on that is obviously based on the pricing situation at the time of filming in summer 2022. But that's changing fast, so by the time you come to view this film, things could be a little different. Once, not long ago, it was possible to purchase a new Supermini for as little as around £13,000. Now, for that figure, you'd only get yourself budget brand models like Dacia's Sandero and the MG3, or a stripped-out version of Citroen's C3. More typical small hatches are, like this one, now typically costing from around £5,000 above that price point. Ford has followed that trend with the Fiesta, but in a manner suggesting to us that the brand is no longer very interested in chasing market share. Profitability has become more important, which is why an entry-level version of the class bestseller, Vauxhall's Corsa, costing under £17,500 at the time of this test, will save you well over £1,000 on a base 75 PS Fiesta. You'd also save about the same with a base 80 PS version of Seat's Ibiza or Skoda's Fabia. Even the priciest superminis in the class, Volkswagen's Polo, Renault's Clio and Peugeot's 208, cost no more than the base version of this Ford in their entry-level, feeblest forms. Our focus here, though, has been based on the mild hybrid versions of this Fiesta that Ford ideally wants to sell you. Should you feel comfortable about paying the premium the Blue Oval brand wants for that? Well, dealerships for all the competitor models we just mentioned will tell you not. None of them offer mild hybrid engine technology in this class. Most instead will, at a saving of about a couple of thousand over a mild hybrid Fiesta, give you an unelectrified 3-cylinder 1-litre turbo engine with a fraction less power, but efficiency that gallingly for Ford is almost as good. Even if you do buy in wholeheartedly to the concept of mild hybrid engineering, a glance at the price list reveals that you can have it for less elsewhere. Over £1,000 less in a Kia Rio, around £2,500 less in a Hyundai i20, around £3,500 less in a Mazda 2, and around £6,000 less in a Suzuki Swift. To be fair to Ford, though, all of the models we've just mentioned offer less power than a Fiesta mild hybrid. But if you don't care about that, then these are savings that might make a potential customer pause for thought. For us, it's even more relevant to point out that for the cost of a mild hybrid Fiesta, you could get considerably more efficient full hybrid engine technology in a Toyota Yaris or Renault Clio E-Tech. With that, unlike with a mild hybrid system, the engine can run on battery power alone for short periods. Lots to consider then if you're thinking of signing a cheque or entering into a lease or finance agreement for one of these. For us, it would come down to how much we'd value the Fiesta's class-leading drive dynamics. Put simply, this car is more fun to drive than its rival, something you'll enjoy even if you're not much of a driving enthusiast. If that, and the right kind of purchase deal, is enough to sway you Ford's way, we'd understand. We might also be swayed by the appeal of little touches competitors can't really replicate. The quick clear windscreen, the automatic door edge protectors, the B&O sound system. For us, features like those would really make this Fiesta stand out in the showroom. What we haven't mentioned so far is the equipment tally you can expect from the various trim levels. So let's take a look at that now. Now, we mentioned earlier that the Blue Oval brand no longer offers bargain basement spec levels with this car, so you'll be expecting a reasonable tally of kit from the base trend trim level, and by and large you shouldn't be disappointed. All Mark 7 model Fiestas have always offered features like air conditioning, auto headlamps, a speed limiter and a trip computer, so of course trend models get all that, along with features that previously would have been restricted to variants further up the range. Things like full LED headlamps, that quick clear heated windscreen we just mentioned, and perhaps most significantly, the largest 8-inch version of Ford's Sync centre dash infotainment screen, which comes complete with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, a 6-speaker DAB audio setup, Bluetooth, and an emergency assistance feature that alerts the rescue services with your exact GPS position if the airbags go off. Other trend spec inclusions run to manual air conditioning, integrated front fog lamps, cruise control, selectable drive modes, normal, eco and sport, velour floor mats, a height adjustable driver's seat, LED daytime running lights, powered heated mirrors, a Thatcham alarm, and a very decent tally of camera safety kit, which we'll get to in a few moments. Plus, there's the Ford MyKey system that lets you set certain functions that can be restricted with the spare individual key fob provided. So, for instance, the volume of the stereo or the maximum speed can be limited for younger drivers. If you're a parent, that feature alone might really sell this car to you. Many Fiesta customers, though, will want to start their perusal of the range with a mid-range titanium spec model, these variants presenting a little more sharply both outside and in, thanks to the addition of extra exterior chrome work, rear privacy glass, front fog lamps and Sensico man-made leather trim for the steering wheel and gear knob. Other titanium spec features include rain-sensing wipers, an auto-dimming rear-view mirror, cruise control with an active speed limiter, a centre console with opening armrest, rear parking sensors, a keyless start button, and some extra safety features we'll cover off for you in a moment. Titanium trim also adds navigation into the Sync infotainment setup, plus the clever Ford Pass Connect embedded modem, which allows in-car Wi-Fi and the chance to interact remotely with your Fiesta from your smartphone via the Ford Pass mobile app. Using this, you'll be able to remotely lock or unlock your car, locate your vehicle if you've forgotten where you parked it, and remotely check fuel level, alarm status, and more. With an automatic model, you can even remotely start the car, maybe warming up the cabin while you finish your breakfast. Lovely. If you want a bit more in a titanium-trimmed Fiesta, you can upgrade to Titanium X Spec, which further adds larger 17-inch wheels, power-folding mirrors with puddle lights, keyless entry and tail lamps with special LED night signatures, and inside a 12.3-inch full digital instrument cluster, electronic automatic temperature control, navigation and voice control for the central Sync infotainment screen, upholstery part trimmed in Sensico leather, lumbar adjustment for the front seats, passenger seat height adjustment, LED ambient lighting, heat for the front seats and steering wheel, a wireless charging mat and a rear view camera. Perhaps most significantly, Titanium X variants get Ford's desirable B&O premium audio 360-degree sound system, which includes a digital sound processor, a mid-range centre speaker in the instrument panel, a subwoofer in the boot wall, centre dash and A-pillar mounted tweeters, and mid-range woofers in the front doors and rear quarters. If you want to go further in the mainstream Fiesta lineup, as we said earlier, you've the choice of getting a package of either sporty touches with one of the ST line models, a car like this one, or crossover cues with the active variants. In both cases, you get all the main features of a standard titanium spec model as a starting point. ST line trim further gives you 17-inch alloy wheels with a rock metallic finish, sports tuned suspension and a full body styling kit with unique front fog lamps, a special honeycombed upper front grille and a large rear spoiler. You also get special front fog lamps and an LED tail light signature, while to set the inside of the cabin apart a little, there's a black headliner. If you want a bit more, there's the ST line X trim option we've been trying here, which in addition to larger pearl grey coloured 18-inch alloy wheels adds most of those extra X-Pack features we mentioned at titanium level. The B&O premium audio system upgrade, the 12.3-inch full digital instrument cluster, power folding mirrors, the part leather upholstery, the keyless entry, LED ambient lighting, the heated front seats and steering wheel, and so on. Overall, if you're looking for a mildly sporty supermini, the two ST line variants offer a well-judged package. But what if you're one of the increasing number of buyers who are forsaking the supermini segment in favour of small Nissan Juke or Renault Captur style SUVs, or indeed Ford's own Puma SUV, which attracts a model-for-model premium over an identically engineered Fiesta of around £2,500? Well, if previously you've traditionally favoured a Fiesta, don't go looking at one of those crossover class cars just yet, because Ford wants you to consider one of the Fiesta Active models. With these, you essentially get a Fiesta with a raised ride height, roof rails, special rough metal machined 17-inch 5-spoke alloy wheels, a skid plate style body kit, extra selectable slippery surface drive modes, rear privacy glass, and a range of extra so-called lifestyle touches. That's all with the standard Active trim package. Plusher Active X spec sets itself apart with bicolour black finished 18-inch wheels, plus all the extra X-Pack embellishments we briefed you on with titanium and ST line edition trim. As for high performance, well, for that you have to of course turn to a Fiesta ST. This Ford used to hold an advantage over other rival supermini hot hatches that tend only to come non-negotiably with expensive equipment packages, most notably Hyundai's i20N. For years, the Fiesta ST's affordable lead-in price gave it an advantage over competitors like that, but no longer. The ST now only comes with plush ST3 trim, and like every other Fiesta, as we said earlier, in a single 5-door body shape that now demands around £27,000 from you. At least you get plenty of equipment for that. In that regard, the main ST model change with this facelift is one that loyalists to this variant might regret. The substitution of the grippy Recaro front seats previously fitted for a pair of Ford performance items said by the brand to be lighter and part trimmed in Sensico faux leather. With ST3 spec, the Fiesta ST gets as standard what used to be a must-have option on the previous entry-level version of this hot hatch, Ford's Performance Pack, which gives you launch control, performance shift indicators, and a Quaife limited slip differential for extra cornering traction. There's a bespoke stitched steering wheel and also an ST soft feel gear knob, which join core ST engineering elements like special suspension, a dual chrome exhaust, and a selectable drive mode set up with normal, sport and track options. The ST Fiesta is visually set apart outside by unique treatment for the front grille, the scuff plates and the rear bumper with its lower diffuser, and inside by blue detailing for the upholstery, the steering wheel, the handbrake lever, the seat belts and the floor mats. The kit tally also runs to big magnetite finished 5-spoke 18-inch ST wheels featuring red brake calipers plus a rear view camera, grey interior highlights, heat for the front seats and steering wheel, keyless entry, electronic automatic climate control, the 12.3-inch full digital instrument cluster and that B&O audio system upgrade. Enough on the standard spec across the range. Let's assume you've chosen the Fiesta variant you want and you're ready to start considering the possibility of adding on a few options. In terms of standalone features, the main thing your dealer will want you to pay extra for is the intelligence matrix system for the LED headlights that we've got here, which comes with signature LED daytime running lights and an integrated sequential indicator. The matrix package gives you glare-free high beam functionality and can also adapt headlight patterns for better visibility in challenging conditions. As for paintwork, well, whatever your preferred exterior colour is, you'll probably end up paying extra for it, as the only standard shade is solid race red. There are various premium colours, a magnetic exclusive shade, and for the ST, a freshly added mean green finish. You can no longer get a contrast-coloured roof or a panoramic glass sunroof. The more expensive variants no longer allow you to upgrade your wheel rim size either. But with base trend and titanium derivatives, you can replace the standard 15-inch plastic-clad steel wheels with 16-inch alloys. Depending on the variants you've chosen, you may want to spend extra on infotainment. Now, with base trend and titanium models, you can add in navigation. Plus, most variants allow you to add in the B&O premium sound system. And from mid-trim upwards, you can add in the 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster too, if your chosen Fiesta doesn't already have it. Rear parking sensors are a pretty essential addition with base trend trim, while further up the range there are optional parking packs that add in front sensors, door edge protectors, an active park assist system to steer you into space, and if your Fiesta of choice doesn't already have it, a rear view camera. The model you've chosen might also be lacking heat for the front seats and steering wheel too. If so, an optional winter pack will put that right. What else? Well, for ST line edition variants, there's an ST design pack that gives you ST scuff plates, and on manual models, an aluminium finish for the gear stick and pedals. Across the range, you can also add a sportier look and feel by adding in features like a carbon fibre gear shift knob, and Ford Performance branded front floor mats, and a sportier drive too if you add the firmer coilover suspension kit, which also comes in IBAC engineered form. That only leaves practical touches. Now, first and foremost, we'd want a spare wheel. Unfortunately, you don't get one as standard, and unfortunately, you can't get one at all with the base 1.1 litre Trend model. What about other optional practicalities across the range? Well, you can add in a tow bar, a roof-based carrier and roof crossbars, of course. For the boot, there's a foldable transport box, a boot liner, a load retention guard and rear bumper protectors. Plus, if you've animals, you'll want the Pads for All pet travel mat. You might also want rubber floor mats, mud flaps, Climb Air wind deflectors, an umbrella holder, a coat hanger, a dash cam, front parking sensors, a premium safety pack which gives you a warning triangle and a safety vest, or for the glove box, a CD player. Enough with general options, let's consider this Fiesta's safety credentials. At the launch of this 7th generation model in 2017, Ford got a 5-star Euro NCAP rating, but this car wouldn't get that today because, rather disappointingly, virtually all models do without standard autonomous braking, the brand's AEB, or Autonomous Emergency Braking setup, which is only standard on the top ST version and which you can't have at all with base Trend spec. What you do get across the lineup is Ford's NCAP pack, which gives you lane keeping alert, which warns you if you drift out of lane, and a lane keeping aid, which applies subtle steering assistance to ease you back to where you ought to be. Also now standard is that emergency assistance feature we mentioned earlier, which alerts the authorities with your GPS location if the airbags go off. It's worth pointing out that this 7th generation Fiesta is an intrinsically safe design too. At its original launch, Ford redesigned the B-pillar and the doors to provide better side impact protection and fitted every variant with 7 airbags, twin front, side and curtain bags, plus one for the driver's needs. The side bags have been designed to lift the occupant's arm away from the impact zone. There's also a clever locking seatbelt tongue attachment on the driver's belt that prevents slippage of that belt during an accident. The rear outer seats feature load limiters and pre-tensioners, which wasn't the case with pre-2017 era Fiestas. And another safety improvement when this Mark 7 model was first launched lay in the fact that inside the doors are pressure sensors that enable restraint systems to be activated several milliseconds earlier in the event of a side impact. Pedestrian protection is helped by the fact that the headlamps are designed to travel rearwards on impact. Plus, there's a collapsible cowl and wiper spindle assembly designed to give way in the event of head impacts. This was the first small car to be fitted with ABS braking back in 1989. And today you also get ESP stability control, tyre pressure monitoring and hill start assist to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions. The big news with this 7th generation design, though, has always been its potential for far superior camera safety technology, which makes it frustrating that so little of that is provided as standard on the variants that most Fiesta customers will actually choose. This technology package can potentially incorporate up to 2 cameras, 3 radars and 12 ultrasonic sensors, which together are able to monitor 360 degrees around the vehicle and scan the road ahead up to a distance of 130 metres, more than the length of a football pitch. To be fair, some extra camera safety kit features are added as you ascend the range. Ignore base trend spec and your Fiesta will come with 3 features that used to cost extra on most versions of the pre-facelift version of this car. Traffic sign recognition, auto high beam and a driver alert feature that warns you if the cabin sensor detects driver drowsiness. If you want to go further and you've avoided base level trim, there's an optional driver assistance pack, which costs another £350, but which we'd want to try and get our dealer to throw in. This gives you the missing AEB, or autonomous emergency braking setup, which has a particular focus on pedestrians and also works at night, plus the pack additionally has intelligent speed assist, which can automatically adapt your speed to posted speed limits, and a more advanced driver alert system, Ford's Driver Impairment Monitor. The driver assistance pack also includes intelligent adaptive cruise control, which automatically regulates your speed to surrounding traffic, as well as to speed signs on highway gantries. And on automatic models, will slow and stop the car if you come across a tailback, then seamlessly start it off again. That's a great feature to have in city traffic. As with its Puma small crossover, Ford literally uses the word hybrid with a capital H to describe this car, which we can't help feeling is a touch misleading. This isn't, after all, a hybrid in the usual sense that a potential buyer would understand. An electrified Fiesta can't drive on electric power alone, nor can it be plugged in. It does instead get one of the new generation of so-called mild hybrid power plants. Ford calls them MHEV units. Basically, ordinary engines, lightly tinselled, with a tiny lithium-ion battery that just about justifies the electrified marketing spiel. The way mild hybrid tech works is pretty universal, but we'll recap on it here in case you haven't viewed our driving experience section. The 1-litre 3-cylinder EcoBoost turbo petrol engine, already pretty efficient thanks to its use of cylinder deactivation at medium to low throttle speeds, is embellished with a belt-driven integrated starter generator, the BISG, this one of 11.5 kilowatts in output. This replaces the standard alternator and enables the recovery and storage of energy usually lost during braking and coasting to charge a tiny 48-volt lithium-ion air-cooled battery pack secreted beneath the rear seat. The BISG also acts as a motor, integrating with the engine and using the stored energy it harvests to provide extra pulling power during normal driving and acceleration, as well as running the vehicle's electrical auxiliaries. The belt-driven integrated starter generator is also able to aid the power plant's stop-start system in urban traffic, restarting the engine in approximately 300 milliseconds, about the same as the blink of an eye. And the BISG also enables the Fiesta EcoBoost Hybrid's auto start-stop technology to operate in a wider range of scenarios for even greater fuel savings, including when coasting to a stop below 10 miles an hour, and even when the vehicle is in gear with the clutch pedal depressed. Thanks to all of this, the subsequent reduction in the amount of work required from the petrol engine results, says Ford, in a fuel efficiency improvement of up to 9%. So what does that equate to in terms of WLTP rated stats? Well, let's start with the Fiesta variant most will choose, the 125 PS MHEV 1-litre EcoBoost Hybrid manual gearbox variant. This returns up to 56.5 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 114 grams per kilometre of CO2. The 7-speed auto gearbox you can specify with this engine has relatively little effect on these figures. Think up to 53.3 mpg and up to 119 grams per kilometre. You'll need some class perspective here. Most directly comparable conventionally engined supermini models deliver about 5 mpg less and put out about 7 to 8 grams per kilometre of CO2 more. You can actually see directly the difference that the MHEV tech makes, because Ford does still offer a conventional non-electrified version of this 3-cylinder EcoBoost 1-litre power plant in this car, the old 100 PS version of this unit. This manages up to 53.3 mpg on the combined cycle and up to 125 grams per kilometre. So it's as it says on the tin. The difference MHEV tech makes is indeed mild. But that shouldn't detract from what is a very strong running cost showing, assuming your comparison point lies with rivals in this class using conventional engines. For completion, we'll mention the minority interest power plants that top and tail the range. The older tech 75 PS 1.1 litre TI VCT unit fitted to base trend models manages 53.3 mpg and up to 121 grams per kilometre. And the top 200 PS 1.5 litre EcoBoost ST hot hatch manages returns of up to 44.1 mpg and up to 151 grams per kilometre of CO2. All the figures we've quoted across the range, assuming that you're running the car in the most frugal of its various selectable drive modes, Eco. It might be instructive at this juncture to compare this Ford's efficiency showing to what you get from a full hybrid model in this class. The car of that kind most likely to spring to mind being Toyota's little Yaris. One of those, in 1.5 litre hybrid form, manages a WLTP rated combined cycle fuel showing of up to 68.9 mpg and a CO2 reading of up to 92 grams per kilometre. That's the kind of comparison the Blue Oval brand might like us to make here against a full hybrid model that isn't that much more efficient and, when in comparably equipped form, would cost around £1,000 more to buy. Unfortunately for Ford, there are other full hybrid models in the class that also manage to deliver next level efficiency with less of a price premium. The Renault Clio E-Tech hybrid we recently tested, for instance, manages up to 65.7 mpg on the WLTP combined cycle, along with up to 96 grams per kilometre of CO2, and at the time of this test in summer 2022 was priced in comparable form at about the same level as a base MHEV Fiesta. But it's nothing like as good to drive as this Ford. Ultimately, as usual, it all depends on your priorities. Various design features help quite a lot in maximising this Mark 7 Fiesta model's efficiency returns, and their contribution is welcome given the fact that this 7th generation model weighs in 33 kilos heavier than its pre-2017 period Mark 6 predecessor. The auto stop-start system has been further developed for this era, and as we've said, that's particularly effective with the MHEV engines. The brand is keen to suggest that sleeker aerodynamics play their part too, though the quoted CD drag coefficient figure is virtually the same as with the pre-2017 design. All EcoBoost variants benefit from the addition of an active grille shutter, which sees slats in the front grille remaining closed at startup, so the power plant can more quickly warm up to its optimum operating temperature. On the move, the flaps can open or shut for optimum aerodynamic efficiency. What else do you need to know about the costs of running this Fiesta? Well, we'll tell you about servicing, which on all engines is required every 2 years or 18,000 miles, whichever comes first. 2 prepaid servicing plans are available, one that covers you for 2 years and 2 services, and another that is transferable to future owners and covers 3 years and 3 services. Maintenance bookings can be done online through the My Ford portal. This is part of the Ford Blue Service scheme that wraps up all of the care and maintenance of your car into one bundle that includes a free 30-point e-check of vital parts and highlights any work required with a red, amber or green traffic light warning to rank items that need attention in order of importance. There's also the Ford Service app that you can download to your phone for free. It lets you locate your nearest dealer and make a booking, plus has extra elements allowing you, for instance, to find petrol stations. As for the warranty, well, like all Fords, this one comes with a 36-month or 60,000 mile package that also includes 1 year of Europe-wide breakdown assistance. On top of that, there's an anti-corrosion guarantee for 12 years. On to insurance, an important consideration for the many younger buyers who will want to be able to choose this car. The one good thing that you can say for the normally aspirated 1.1 litre TI VCT engine fitted to the cheapest trend spec model is that it comes with a low insurance rating, Group 7E. The various EcoBoost engines will cost you quite a lot more to cover. The non-electrified 100 PS version of this unit is rated at Group 12E. The 125 PS MHEV Hybrid attracts a rating of between 17E and 18E, depending on variant. And the top 1.5 litre EcoBoost ST Hot Hatch is rated at Group 26E. Finally, let's consider the question of residual values. This area has never been a Fiesta strength, but so far this Mark 7 model has performed much better than its pre-2017 era Mark 6 predecessor. Ford says it surveyed 6 major residual value providers and found that a typical Fiesta model, a 1 litre T EcoBoost MHEV 5-door titanium derivative, would retain an average of £1,272 more of its value after 3 years than the directly equivalent variant in the Mark 6 range could manage. If you want percentage figures, we'll tell you that after 3 years and 36,000 miles, independent sources suggest that you'll be looking at a retained value of around 45% of the original purchase price, with the 1 litre T EcoBoost MHEV petrol models performing best. That's on a par with obvious rivals. The Ford Fiesta has always been a vehicle the British public has warmed to, but the truth is that in the past, supermini buyers often chose this car either because it was great to drive or because they'd been offered a deal too good to turn down. There wasn't really another reason to buy one. This Mark 7 model has gradually changed all that, and this updated version is smarter to look at, smarter to sit in, and smarter to operate. There's an unpretentious feel to it and a focus on providing the things that really matter to small car buyers. The fun handling and affordable technology Ford has long delivered to them in this segment, but also the low running costs, strong safety provision and low emissions they now need too. And it's all been done with a polish and self-belief that we've never seen from a Fiesta before. Flawless then? No, of course not. Choose this test car's mild hybrid engine, as you'll probably want to, and its hybrid badging will probably lead you to expect more in terms of gains in efficiency than this kind of token electrified engineering can actually deliver. Plus, for all the improvements made to this model line, it still lags behind most supermini rivals in terms of rear seat space, boot capacity and cabin quality. We'd like to see autonomous braking standardised as well. Still, if these things aren't essential to you in choosing your ideal supermini, as they may not be, you'll find that there's much to like here. This design could easily have gone the way of Ford's EcoSport SUV and become something of a compromised global product. Instead, the Fiesta feels as perfectly suited to our market as ever. This Ford continues to have a cheeky, endearing quality that many more clinical rivals lack. In short, this is more than ever a small car that supermini buyers simply can't ignore.